All right, day 2 in Tallinn is beginning. Finally charged my camera up. Unfortunately, I'm getting a bit of a late start because someone, i.e. me, had to sleep for 15 hours because their jet lag finally kicked in. So it's about 1:30. I'm finally getting on the road, but we're gonna see the big sights today. So Toompea Castle, Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. Should be a good time. So here comes the train. A short train ride later and we are back where we ended yesterday. So up ahead is the memorial to the dad who fought against the Soviets in 1918 and church. But today we're going to that building you can see behind, which is part of the original complex of Toompea Castle. So today Toompea Castle, which we'll see, is where Estonia's parliament meets. But it used to be part of a bigger complex because it was genuinely a whole castle with walls and all that. So we're going to be able to walk around the walls, I believe, go through some of the tunnels, and sort of have a day of it. So down here, you can see the gate that initially led to Toompea Castle. So as they started fortifying this later after it was initially built, they would just heap earth on top of things. That became more the style for defense rather than walls and towers. Just made of stone, but you can see it's turned into kind of a wishing well. My first note is that Middle Ages defenses were not necessarily built for handicapped people. I think you'd have a hard time getting a wheelchair down here. A lot of stairs. Whoever did these mannequins did a little bit too good of a job, which is kind of creepy. Looks like I'm about to get ground. These tunnels were used as bomb shelters, not surprisingly, by both Estonians during the Second World War. And then later, they were prepared as bomb shelters for eventual nuclear war with the United States. Because obviously Estonia was part of the Soviet Union sphere of influence. The way this exhibition is set up, the farther you go, the farther back in time you go. So we are now in the 1700s. A lot of Estonia's history during, I guess you'd probably call it the Enlightenment era, was as a battleground between the great powers of Sweden and Russia. And here we have some old gravestones. Just to underscore how cosmopolitan Tallinn was, here's a gravestone in German. And another. Now either this was restored in a very accurate way, or this was just a part of the museum that they decided to leave more or less untouched, but this looks a lot more medieval, I'd say, in the first part. The cement walls and all that. Some real stone. Unsurprisingly, a lot of the stone used around here was limestone. So that actually makes me feel right at home. Got some stalactites or stalagmites. One of those forming. I can't remember which it is. So that's the whole exhibit in the tunnels. And now we get to walk all the way back and get to see the towers, which truthfully is what I was most looking forward to. Now, I don't know how high you actually get to go up or what the views are like, but based on some of the pictures I was able to get yesterday after my camera died here, just using my phone, if you look out over the city, it's pretty beautiful from this hill. So, looking forward to that. Now it's just a long walk back. Alright, so this is the first tower we're going to get to go up.
Кольца с 1362 года, 14 век. 14 век.
So we're heading to the stable tower, hence the horses. And hence why it's so stable. So those were the towers along the wall. And now we get to go up in the big tower. Hopefully it lives up to the hype, right? So you can see they fire long guns out of these windows. Really long gun right there. Made this castle virtually impregnable. You can see why cannons were so devastating. These things were flying at you fast. You would want to get out of the way. That would hurt. Oh, plague doctors. That's fitting. Now we're at the top. Looks like there's usually a cafe here. More's the pity because I could really use some water. See if we can't find a nice view. That is it for Keek de Coke. It's part of the Toompea castle. And now, I need to find somewhere to drink because I am so thirsty. With some food, water, beer, and coffee in me, I am ready to get back to adventuring. Here we go, going into this art museum. Well, church turned art museum. That's the only reason I'm going in. So as y'all know, I'm not doing art museums this year. We are now in the St. Nicholas Church, which apparently has been built and rebuilt quite a few times. They've turned the church into a museum for medieval art. Which is one of the few types of art I can kind of get down with. I may be a Philistine, I can still appreciate a good church when I see one. Architecture is one of the few forms of art I kind of vibe with. I think maybe because it's functional. There was a German movie I watched one time about a Turkish family that moved to Germany. And one of the things they talked about was like how one of the kids was so scared of Jesus. Because it is kind of morbid that we have pictures of a guy hanging on a cross, clearly suffering in like every major building in the West. But I guess I've gotten kind of desensitized to it growing up in the West. Once you get that perspective, though, of it being kind of, morbid or creepy, it's a little hard to unsee. And that was the St. Nicholas Church / Art Museum. That's where we just were. So now head back up to Toompea Castle area to hopefully see the Nevsky Cathedral, Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. Now, from what I've heard, we won't be able to take pictures inside, so if I do, I'll have to be sneaky. Or maybe I'll just follow the rules, I don't know. I guess TBD. First, I believe if we go this way, we'll be back at the Cathedral Museum. Which I thought looked pretty cool from this angle when I was standing up there, and I'd say it's pretty cool. That's right. I don't know about the graffiti, but a little sad to think that people would vandalize the building from the Renaissance period, but oh well. Once again, St. Nicholas Church, and over here, that's the rampart we were walking across before. Up there is the statue of the hooded monk that allegedly haunts that tower right there, the short leg tower. So you turn the corner from Cathedral, you're right back at the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. Cathedral, whatever. Just reading a sign, I realized I was wrong. Yesterday I was worried that I wouldn't be able to get any good outdoor footage. It's be raining all day, but it's honestly almost a nicer day than it was yesterday. Got nice blue skies. Sun's just starting to set. And there you have the Estonian Parliament, Toompea Castle, the part that was built later, more of a Renaissance style. And of course, Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, which we're going to try to get into now. One thing that to me as an American is super surprising is that this is where the Parliament actually meets. And there's no security anywhere that I can see. You can walk right up to the door. You don't see anyone with guns, nothing. At the Capitol, you can walk up to it, but you know that you're being watched. Guess that's the beauty of not being the world's biggest terrorist target as a country, is that you can just walk right up. Got a little compass here in case you were lost. Voila, Parliament of Estonia. Now this is fairly controversial, and it's something I saw when I was looking at videos on Estonia before I came here to get a sense of what I'd want to go see. The Alexander Nevsky Cathedral is right across from Toompea, and the reason that's controversial is that this is obviously the most clear sign of Russian imperialism in Estonia. It's directly across from, I would say, one of the most important monuments in Estonia, and sort of overshadows it in some ways. So a lot of Estonians that I've seen, at least the ones who go online, will get very upset if you say that this building is more impressive than this building, because this building is not really reflective of the cultural heritage of Estonia in the same way that this building is. Now, I don't know that one is necessarily better than the other. I think they're both very pretty in their own way. So I'm not going to weigh in on that particular debate and get slaughtered by Estonian nationalists online. It is remarkable that you get both of these buildings, at least for someone filming, in the same area, so that I don't have to walk around the city anymore. Because I am tired, I have a stitch from how much I ate, so for that reason I'll say thank you, Russia. Well, the inside is awesome. There were a lot of, I guess what you'd call babushkas in there, doing their prayers, you know, bowing in front of the shrines. So I would have felt a little bad busting out my camera and recording, in addition to the fact that obviously the rule says you can't. So you all have to content yourselves. Views from the outside, which is still very impressive, but also a reason for you to come to Tallinn yourself, because it is totally worth it. Right next to the parliament you have this lovely garden. Up there you have Tall Herman, which is part of the medieval section of the building. It's really interesting because the building's partitioned into a number of different parts based on when it was built. So the two most obvious ones are this pink one, which is more, I think, Renaissance Enlightenment, you know, all the way up to turn of the centuries, Berlin Jugendstil. And then you have, of course, the super medieval looking tower, which really just speaks to the longevity of Estonia. Maybe not as a country, like a nation state, but as an entity in some way. One of the reviews for Tall Herman from someone who said they were disappointed it wasn't a tall chap named Herman, which I got a good chuckle out of. Personally, I prefer the tower to a tall chap named Herman, but I appreciate the take to the contrary. Any followers of the Eastern Orthodoxy, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I can tell, in an Eastern Orthodox church, the key to fitting in is doing a lot of these and a lot of bowing in front of shrines. I feel like if you do that enough, if you walk with some purpose, you could probably get into the non-tourist part of a lot of these. Also, the big thing is it's push not pull with the crossing, because I'm pretty sure Catholics, you guys do that. This one you got to go here. You do that a couple times, like 3 times, bow like 3 times, I think you'd be in business. So here is the promised church. I believe it's St. Catherine's. Yeah, it looks like it's right. See something that says Katerina, I think. Oh, Christina. St. Christine's church? St. Christina's church? It's Saint something church. Some saint. Let it not be said I know too much about Estonia's history and churches. And this is where I was last night after my camera died, so y'all are still gonna see the full Estonia I saw. I'm willing to see it twice because it's just gorgeous, especially on a night like tonight. Or night, I guess it's only 5 o'clock, but whatever. You know what I'm saying. On an evening like this evening. Evidently it's St. Mary's. I don't know where I got St. Catherine's from or St. Christina's from, but St. Mary's. Also, the gonging you hear in the background is from the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, letting us know it's 5 o'clock. Really letting us know. The area up by Toompea, guess it could be Toompea, by the way. There's a lot of things where it could be something different than what I'm actually saying. I mostly just walk around with the camera. But in any case, Toompea. I'm going to stick with Toompea for now. There's a lot of areas, or the area around Toompea rather, is, I'd say, the most, I mean, maybe not medieval looking, but old school looking of the city. These streets are super uneven, which actually feels kind of good because my foot's a little sore and it's getting a nice massage. These cobblestones. We've got the old pink buildings, pink and yellow, and then very narrow alleyways. And the church bells in the background definitely add to the effect as well. Brings us to the most scenic overlook in all of Tallinn. The walk down from Toompea to the town square is this long cobblestone path that would be absolutely awesome. Maybe not to ski on, but to sled on in the winter. I don't know if anyone's done it, but they should. You know, some of the walls that we'd walked on earlier to the side here. And then construction to ruin the effect of walking through a medieval city. One thing that Tallinn does quite well, which is very helpful for someone like me, is that at a lot of points of interest around the city, they'll have little explanations of what you're looking at. At least in the old town, I've seen that pretty frequently. And frankly, with some of the points of interest, they're not so obviously, you know, points of interest, that it can be nice to have a little explainer there as a tip-off. Like, oh, there's a plaque. It must mean that this building has some importance outside of its appearance. I also realized I forgot to give a shout out to the place I had lunch, which was fantastic. It's called, and I'm gonna mispronounce it and just butcher it, but it looks like Radeskevu 16, which is also, it's the address of the building, so it makes it somewhat easy to find. But the food was top notch. I had the pork tenderloin and marron. Fantastic. Now we're back at the town square. Gothic town hall that you'll recall from yesterday, and all the absurdly overpriced restaurants. I mean, really, the place I had lunch at, the Radeskevu 16, was about 20 euros altogether, and I had a large beer, pork tenderloin, some bread, some water, and I had a what do they call it, espresso macchiato for, I guess, kind of my dessert slash after meal drink. And it was only 20 euros. And most of these places will charge you 20 euros for just the main course. So I recommend not, I mean, unless you really want to, but not dining in this area of the city. Just go like 2 blocks in either direction. You'll find somewhere that's a little more reasonably priced. So this is Plate Tower. It was named after the supervisor when it was being built. His last name was Plate. That's part of this wall. It's on the other side of the old town from the Viru gate that we passed through on the first day. Now I do wonder when you see something like this, whether that part of the wall has just fallen down, so like, okay, we'll put a street, or whether they knocked down the part of the wall because they needed a street, and that just seemed like the most logical place to put it. I hope it's the first one. It's kind of sad to think they'd just be destroying walls because they're a little bit in the way, but I guess you gotta adapt the past to fit the present at some level as well. So here's a nice symbiosis with the modern road on the wall. So you can see they adapted the gate to just be a gate for cars. What you just saw there was some delicious chocolate cake from the Pierre Cafe, located just off of the center square in Tallinn. I'd say I recommend it. It was pretty good. No Wi-Fi, which is unfortunate if you're like me and don't have a plan that works in Europe. But the decor was amazing. It had a lot of the stuff from the Soviet period, which makes sense as the cafe was founded in 1937. Now, one thing I don't know the answer to that I'd like to learn more about is how some of these businesses that say they've been open since X date, so like, I mean, there's one that even said 1400 or 1500, how they stayed open during Soviet rule, because Soviets famously didn't really allow free enterprise. So you'd think private shops like that would have gone out of business, but it seems, at least from the dates that they purport, that that's not the case. So I don't know exactly how that all works, and I'd like to. So some US cultural imperialism. Got a Seventh-day Adventist church built in 1923. Apparently it was the first stone building built in the new Republic of Estonia, as it was then called. By 7 o'clock in October, it is definitely nighttime in Estonia. Right now we are down by the port. You can see right there is the Tallinn building, so that's the company that runs the ferry that we came in on. So now I'm gonna go up, see if we can see the water, which I'm hoping will look cool at night. I guess it's possible it may just look dark. That's how it was in Chicago, definitely. But worth taking a look. Most of the museums close at 5 or 6, so choices now are basically go get dinner, which I really do not need. I ate way too much food today, or go look at the water. So the water it is. That there is the Baltic Sea. So you can see the sun setting in the west over there. I do not know exactly how cold that water is, but my guess is you would not want to be in there right now. So this is all that remains of the main gate on the southern side of Tallinn. So there's the old town, the St. Nicholas Church, it's right back there. And then this is what it used to look like. Now that's all we got. So that's gonna do it for Tallinn Old Town. It was fantastic. I really do think I'll come back because I feel like I didn't see everything I wanted to see. Some of it just wasn't open, some of it I missed because I slept in too long. Tomorrow I'll be heading out to the east of the city to see the Tallinn TV tower. and the ruins of some convent, I guess, that is out there, and Cathedral. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Once again, don't have it in front of me. It's something like Cathedral Park. Yeah, whatever, close enough. And then I'll be hopping on a plane and heading to Riga, Latvia. So still hammering it out. It's a busy trip, it's a tiring trip, but it's all worth it. So yeah, that is it from Tallinn Old Town.